Millionaire father sees black bricklayer, feeding his blind daughter and changes his life forever. Millionaire. Robert Montgomery stood frozen, watching the scene unfold in the garden of his Connecticut mansion. A black bricklayer, his hands calloused and his clothes worn from work, was gently feeding his daughter Charlotte, the same daughter he could barely look in the eye since the accident that left her blind 2 years ago. "There, little Leahy, just one more spoonful," Marcus Johnson said, with a kindness that made Robert feel as if a knife were twisting in his chest. Charlotte laughed, a sound Robert had almost forgotten. At 8 years old, she hadn't smiled like that in her father's presence in a long time. The girl raised her hand, finding Marcus's face with surprising accuracy. "Tell me more about the colors in the garden, Marcus," she asked. "I want to see through your eyes." Robert recoiled into the shadows of the terrace, feeling a toxic mixture of shame and anger growing inside him. How could this man, who had known Charlotte for only 2 weeks, connect with her in a way that he, her own father, could no longer? Montgomery Construction was one of the largest companies in the country, specializing in luxury buildings that transformed urban landscapes. But Robert Montgomery couldn't build a bridge to his own daughter's heart. The accident had happened on an ordinary afternoon. A drunk driver, a blind curve, and Charlotte's life was changed forever. Robert had been behind the wheel. Physically, he had walked away unscathed. Emotionally, he was a wreck, drowning in work and guilt ever since. Charlotte had been living under the care of well-paid nannies and nurses, while Robert hid away in the upper floors of his mansion or in his office in the city. The arrival of the garden renovation team, led by Marcus Johnson, should not have altered this dysfunctional dynamic. However, something was changing, and Robert didn't know how to deal with it. "Mr. Montgomery!" The voice of his housekeeper, Mrs. Peterson, interrupted his dark thoughts. "You have an important call from China about the Shanghai project." Robert nodded mechanically, casting one last glance at the garden before heading to his office. As he walked down the hallway, he paused in front of the framed photograph of his late wife, Eleanor. "You would have known what to do," he murmured. "You always knew." At that afternoon's meeting with investors, Robert was distant. His mind returned repeatedly to the scene in the garden. When he returned home, he found Mrs. Peterson waiting with a worried expression. "Sir, Charlotte's piano teacher called. She missed her 3rd lesson in a row." "What do you mean? Didn't the nurse take her?" "Charlotte refused to go." Mrs. Peterson hesitated. "She said she hates the piano now that she can't see the keys." Robert felt the weight of guilt grow even heavier. Eleanor had been a pianist, and Charlotte had always loved her lessons. That night, unable to sleep, Robert went down to the kitchen to get a glass of water. He was surprised to hear voices coming from the garden. Approaching the back door quietly, he saw Marcus sitting by the fountain with Charlotte. "Well, after working hours. My father doesn't love me anymore since I went blind," the girl said, with a certainty that tore Robert's heart apart. "He can't even be in the same room with me." "Don't say that, little one." Marcus's voice was firm but gentle. "Sometimes adults don't know how to deal with pain, especially the pain of the people they love most." "Have you lost someone you loved?" Charlotte asked. A long silence followed before Marcus answered. "Yes, my daughter Zoe. She was almost your age." Robert froze. Something in Marcus's voice, a deep, familiar pain, kept him rooted to the shadows. "What happened to her?" Charlotte asked. "She was sick. Leukemia. We fought for 3 years, but—" Marcus took a deep breath. "What I learned, Charlotte, is that the time we have with the people we love is too precious to waste on fear." Robert recoiled, silent as a shadow. His whole world crumbled as he realized the true nature of his behavior. It wasn't protection. It was cowardice. And as he climbed the stairs back to his empty room, one question haunted him. What kind of man abandoned his own daughter in her hour of greatest need, while a stranger who carried his own devastating pain found the strength to offer her comfort. What Robert didn't know was that Marcus Johnson wasn't just a simple bricklayer with a kind heart. There was much more to his story than anyone in that mansion could have imagined, and the truths that would emerge in the coming weeks would forever change the fate of everyone involved. If this story of guilt, redemption, and unlikely connections touched your heart, be sure to subscribe to the channel to find out how the meeting between these two men, broken by life but united by their love for the same child, will trigger a series of revelations that no one could have predicted. The weight of guilt. Robert's struggles. Before we delve deeper into the unfolding drama, it's essential to fully grasp who Robert Montgomery is and what brought him to this pivotal moment. As the CEO of Montgomery Construction, one of the largest luxury building firms in the country, Robert had spent decades shaping skylines and amassing wealth. His company transformed urban landscapes, creating iconic structures admired by millions. Yet, beneath the polished exterior of success lay a man haunted by an invisible wound, a deep-seated guilt over the car accident that robbed his daughter Charlotte of her sight. To truly comprehend Robert's internal conflict, we must revisit the day of the accident. It was an ordinary afternoon, marred only by a drunk driver and a blind curve. Physically, Robert walked away unscathed, but emotionally, he was shattered. The trauma of being behind the wheel when his daughter's life changed forever became a weight too heavy to bear. Instead of confronting his pain, Robert retreated into work, burying himself in projects and meetings while Charlotte lived under the care of well-paid nannies and nurses. In the months following the accident, Robert's behavior shifted dramatically. He avoided spending time with Charlotte, unable to reconcile the vibrant child she once was with the reality of her blindness. This emotional distance grew into a chasm, leaving Charlotte feeling abandoned by the very person who should have been her anchor. Meanwhile, Robert sought solace in material achievements, pouring his energy into expanding his empire, as if success could somehow compensate for his failure as a father. Yet, even amidst his self-imposed exile, there was something remarkable about Robert: his latent capacity for change. Deep down, he yearned to reconnect with Charlotte, but fear and shame kept him paralyzed. Little did he know, however, that the arrival of Marcus Johnson, a humble bricklayer hired to renovate the garden, would become the catalyst for his transformation. When Robert first observed Marcus interacting with Charlotte, he instinctively chose observation over intervention. It's a trait born not of indifference, but of uncertainty, a reflection of years spent avoiding difficult emotions. What neither man realized at the time was that their paths would soon intertwine in ways neither could have anticipated. Enter Marcus Johnson, a man shaped by loss. While Robert wrestled with his own demons, Marcus Johnson carried burdens of his own. Born into modest circumstances, Marcus had worked tirelessly to build a better future. Graduating with honors in civil engineering, he seemed destined for greatness, managing large-scale construction projects and earning accolades for his innovative designs. But life has a way of testing even the strongest among us, and Marcus's journey took a devastating turn when tragedy struck twice within a short span of years. First came the loss of his wife, Amelia, to cancer. Then, 3 years later, his young daughter Zoe succumbed to leukemia after a grueling battle. These consecutive losses shattered Marcus, leaving him adrift in a sea of grief. Unable to cope with the overwhelming emptiness, he abandoned his promising career, trading blueprints and boardrooms for manual labor. Working with his hands became a form of therapy, a way to channel his pain into something tangible. Despite his hardships, Marcus retained an extraordinary ability to connect with others, especially children. When he began working on the renovation of Robert's garden, he quickly formed a bond with Charlotte. To her, Marcus wasn't just a worker. He was a storyteller, a guide, and a source of comfort. Through his descriptions of colors, textures, and scents, he helped Charlotte experience the world in new ways, fostering a sense of wonder that transcended her blindness. What drives someone like Marcus to extend such kindness to a stranger's child? To answer this question, we must delve deeper into his psyche. Growing up in a community where resources were scarce, Marcus understood the importance of empathy and resilience. He believed that every interaction, no matter how small, held the potential to make a difference. For him, helping Charlotte wasn't merely an act of charity, it was a way to honor the memory of his late daughter, Zoe, who had taught him to cherish the fleeting beauty of life. When Robert stumbled upon Marcus and Charlotte sharing moments of joy, he saw more than just a kind-hearted worker. He saw a reflection of the father he wished he could be, a man capable of seeing beyond limitations and embracing the present moment. This realization planted the seeds of introspection, forcing Robert to confront uncomfortable truths about himself and his relationship with his daughter. An unlikely partnership. Forms. What happens next is nothing short of extraordinary. As Robert learns more about Marcus's background and the depth of his personal tragedies, he realizes that their shared experiences of loss create a unique opportunity for mutual healing. Together, they embark on a mission to uncover the truth about Charlotte's condition, assembling evidence that exposes a sinister conspiracy involving Dr. Bennett, the neurologist responsible for her diagnosis. Their plan is meticulous, requiring equal parts strategy and sacrifice. Robert leverages his vast resources, mobilizing private investigators, elite lawyers, and media contacts to dismantle Dr. Bennett's empire of lies. Meanwhile, Marcus contributes years of painstaking research, including medical records and testimonies from other affected families. Together, they transform their individual grief into a collective force for justice. Through it all, tension simmers beneath the surface. Can someone like Robert, accustomed to wielding power and privilege, truly understand the struggles faced by someone like Marcus, who has endured systemic inequities? Is Marcus risking too much by placing his trust in a man whose wealth and influence stem from the very structures that failed him? These questions linger unspoken, but shape every decision they make. The dynamics between the two men add depth to the narrative. For instance, Robert's initial skepticism toward Marcus reflects not malice, but a lifetime of conditioning to view individuals from marginalized backgrounds through a lens of bias. Over time, however, he comes to recognize Marcus's integrity and resolve, gaining a newfound respect for the strength required to persevere against adversity. Similarly, Marcus's willingness to collaborate with Robert underscores the universality of human connection, proving that empathy can bridge even the widest divides. As the pair works together, their interactions reveal subtle shifts in perspective. Robert begins to see Marcus not just as a victim of circumstance, but as a courageous ally willing to risk everything for the greater good. Conversely, Marcus starts to appreciate the complexities of privilege, understanding that true allyship requires accountability and action. These transformations enrich the narrative, making it more than just a tale of revenge. It becomes a story of mutual growth and empowerment. The climax. Justice served. The culmination of their efforts comes during a high-profile court hearing where Dr. Bennett is exposed for his fraudulent practices. Surrounded by reporters and cameras, the courtroom buzzes with anticipation as evidence is presented detailing decades of misdiagnoses, unauthorized experiments, and cover-ups orchestrated by Bennett and his accomplices. As damning documents are unveiled, revealing the extent of Bennett's crimes, the facade crumbles in real time, leaving him exposed and powerless. Federal agents enter discreetly, arresting Bennett on charges ranging from medical malpractice to criminal negligence. As the man once hailed as a pioneer in neurology is led away in handcuffs, Robert stands up, addressing the crowd. "This isn't just about my daughter or Marcus's family," he declares. "It's about ensuring that no child ever suffers because of greed and corruption." This scene serves as the emotional apex of the story, blending triumph with accountability. Bennett's downfall isn't depicted as personal vindication for Robert and Marcus, but as a victory for collective resistance against systemic inequities. The symbolism is potent. The very tools used to oppress vulnerable patients, medical authority, institutional power, and legal loopholes are repurposed to dismantle structures of injustice. It's a reminder that power, when wielded responsibly, can be transformative. Redemption and renewal. In the aftermath of Bennett's arrest, Robert channels his victory into something greater. Using his resources, he establishes the Zoe Foundation, a treatment center dedicated to helping children misdiagnosed by unethical practitioners. Named in honor of Marcus's late daughter, the foundation becomes a beacon of hope for families seeking second opinions and access to ethical medical care. Over 3 years, the foundation treats dozens of children, transforming lives and restoring faith in the healthcare system. Meanwhile, Marcus dedicates himself to mentoring young engineers and advocating for systemic reforms in the construction industry. Together, he and Robert prove that true justice isn't about tearing down the powerful, it's about rebuilding systems that empower everyone. As the sun sets over the Zoe Foundation's garden, Robert reflects on their journey. "It's our choices that define who we are," he says, "not our birth or our past." With these words, the screen fades to black, leaving viewers inspired and hopeful. If this story of resilience and transformation resonates with you, don't forget to subscribe for more tales of courage and change. After all, sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can spark revolutions. Expanded reflections. The story of Darius and Alex is more than just a tale of individual triumph. It's a reflection of the broader societal changes needed to create a fairer, more equitable world. Darius's journey highlights the systemic barriers faced by minority entrepreneurs, while Alex's rebellion underscores the importance of challenging inherited privilege. Together, their actions demonstrate that meaningful progress requires both courage and collaboration. The fall of Richard Winters symbolizes the dismantling of corrupt systems, but the real victory lies in what replaces them. Horizon Technologies and the Winters Foundation represent a new paradigm, one where opportunities are accessible to all, regardless of background. By focusing on inclusion and empowerment, Darius and Alex ensure that their legacy extends beyond personal redemption. It becomes a blueprint for systemic change. Ultimately, this story reminds us that justice isn't just about punishing wrongdoing, it's about creating conditions for everyone to thrive. Through compassion, determination, and collective action, even the most entrenched injustices can be overcome.